Welcome to FreedomCast, a podcast dedicated to interviewing star icons and entrepreneurs who have encouraged others to become more healthy and active. My name is Ashton, and it's my pleasure to host you as we take another trip through the fitness industry. It's entertaining and informative, and I hope it makes fitness more exciting and special to you in your own fitness journey. FreedomCast is supported by Freedom Fitness Equipment in Charlotte, North Carolina. Freedom Fitness Equipment serves the health and fitness community nationwide, from free weights and... All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're here with, how do you say your last name? Is it Hadden, Hayden?
Hadden.
Hadden.
Yes,
so
sir.
We're here with Matthew Hadden from Pioneer Belts or General Leathercraft Manufacturing.
That's correct.
And so we're just visiting. I was visiting his facility. We had a couple of things we were talking about as far as pulley systems and things we were thinking about making for the business. But I wanted to interview Matt because not only are you an interesting guy, but he started a whole business around weightlifting belts, for those of you who don't know. So Pioneer makes, well, I'll let you talk about how the business got started and the background on it and everything like that. But yeah, welcome and thanks for coming on the podcast.
And I appreciate you having me. I'm glad you made the trip. I know it was a long one. So, sure. My name is Matt Hadden, really known as Pioneer Fit on social media, which I'm not a big fan of. I'd rather you guys just know me by my name, but that's okay. So my grandfather started this business 42 years ago. Father ran it for a long time. I've been running it now. I just actually had my 8th anniversary. Nice. So I've been back here in my town that I grew up in for 8 years with my wife and my 4 young boys. We've grown. The business has had its ups and downs throughout the years. I'm not a huge history buff, even with my own business. But I know that my grandfather started it from the ground up in western Nebraska. His region was little back in the late 70s. So he would sell belts out of the trunk of his car. Wow. And he would go around to sporting goods stores in that area and try to muster up business. And manufacturing was all done in El Paso, so whenever I was born, I was young when my parents moved us to El Paso to be closer to the manufacturing. Manufacturing blew up when OSHA required back supports for every company that their employees actually had to lift over 20 pounds. I think OSHA required back support belts. So we made, apparently this was obviously before I was here, we made truckloads, semi-truckloads full of nylon and Velcro belts for like the guys, you're old enough to know, like Lowe's and Home Depot, those guys that wore the suspender Velcro belts. Yep. They mostly all came from us. We had some sort of government contract with them to make a whole bunch of them. Oh, wow. That science was put to the test and deemed false somewhere in the 90s, maybe early 90s, late 80s. Oh, no. And so that business went completely out as soon as OSHA says you don't actually, your core is worse if you have back support on all the time because you're using it as a crutch, right? So your abs and your back are actually weakening because they're not using the muscles to...
Let me get you to move over just a little bit, sorry. There you go. Cool.
You're not using your muscles to actually, lift whatever you're having to lift at work. And so when that went down, we were always making leather belts. Leather belts is what they focused on, right? Because that business was gone now. So we started making belts, and we made belts back in the day for Tom Platz and some of the bigger named bodybuilders back in the day. Lou nice. Ferrigno was one of them.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I actually reached out to Lou's son, the Hulk's son. He never got back to me, but so if Mr. Ferrigno, if you're out there, check your DMs. No, so Grandpa and Dad grew the business into what it was until we moved to Coleman. My grandfather stayed back, retired at his retirement home, and not a retirement home. That sounds like an old folks home. It is house that he retired in New Mexico. My parents and my family moved to Coleman, where we are now, 28 years ago. So I grew up here, and I grew up out here in the shop, the same shop, not really making belts, but doing all of the things that a 9, 10, 11-year-old can do, nothing dangerous, but out here enough to never want to come back. When I left out of high school, I thought I was going to be gone from Coleman forever, and I wanted to be gone from Coleman forever. And it's weird how it all kind of came back together. I have 2 older sisters, and both of them were offered the same gig that I was. Like, look, the business is not doing very well. Your mother and I, this is talking as dad, your mother and I want to get out. We want to retire. Do you want to come back and take over the legacy or the family business? Well, at that time, my oldest sister was a CFO of a big law firm down in Austin, making, well established, making good money. My middle sister, she was in the medical field, well established, making good money. Here I was, a struggling golf pro in Ridgely in Fort Worth.
Oh, no way.
My fiance at the time was going. She got her undergrad from UNT, and she was trying to find a place to go to college to get her master's degree. And she applied in Abilene, which is, like I told you a little bit earlier, a bigger town about 40 miles north of here. And it all worked out. Like, they called and said, hey, Matt, I already asked your sisters, do you want to take over the business? Well, I kind of wanted to at first, kind of didn't. I was kind of torn. I was drawn to somebody wouldn't be able to tell me what my value was. Nobody would be able to say, you're only worth, at that time, like $27,000 a year.
Wow.
Not having a ceiling was appealing. I've always been into golf, which is, I find parallels with what I know and what I know now. And, the more you put into a game like that, or any sport, even weightlifting, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And business is very much the same. Mm-hmm. You can half-ass a business and, you might eke out a living, or you can go all in and, you can do something with that business. So I was drawn to that. My wife, actually, shortly after I got that phone call from my parents, my wife got her acceptance letter into ACU in Abilene. So I put in my 2 weeks notice in the golf business, and I came back here.
Oh, wow.
And when I got back here, dove into the books with what little college experience I had in business. I was very much in the retail space, so I knew how to handle customers fairly well. All you're trying to do is, put them into the best product and make them happy. It's pretty simple. I think people overcomplicate, customer service. It's not science. It really is just do the right thing, and people will appreciate it. Yeah. They can see through the bull crap. It's not science. Anyways, I got into the books here at the shop and realized, some of the shortfalls that we were having as a company, and I didn't get to really make any decisions when I first started because I didn't know enough. So my parents took me out back and said, you stay out here and you make belts until you learn how to make belts. You can come up into the actual office and start doing some of the actual business stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I spent probably a year and a half out there with what little crew we had, making belts, learning all the machines, learning how to fix them, learning how to screw them up. We grew and grew. We'd have conversations, not necessarily in my direction, but I would tell my parents, like, look, we need to get online. We need to get a website established. We need to maybe get away from only producing wholesale belts and start trying to do some retail stuff. Obviously, there's better margins in retail. I don't want to say there's a better chance at growing. At that time, I had no idea what it was going to grow into. I just knew that there's a lot more consumers than there are retailers. So, I'm a numbers guy. It made more sense. Well, let's go after the consumers rather than the people that sell to these consumers. So we started switching that focus while I was still making belts, and we started seeing some traction online. The cool thing about, especially in the fitness industry, even more specifically powerlifting, super tight knit, super word travels super fast.
Yeah.
So we put out a good product, and people started to notice that, and they would talk. This was before I had social media, so I didn't have the ability to reach a bunch of people. These were just factions of people in different parts of the country saying, "Oh, I got this belt from this company called General Leathercraft. You should get one, man. It's awesome." Oh, wow. And it morphed into more people ordering stuff online. Then you kind of, mom and dad started to realize, okay, well, retail might be a thing. And, when we got on social media, and I spent all of my time, outside of actually working on belts, all of my time trying to muster up, people that I thought would be respected in the field, in the powerlifting space. So I'd reach out to Larry Williams, Larry Wheels, before he was Larry Wheels.
Yeah.
When he was sponsored with Animal. Kevin Oak Strong on social media was a very, very important part of our early success in social media.
Nice.
But I sent hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of DMs to people that had way more followers than us at 0. And it helped. Social media and our retail space kind of go hand in hand. I think if our social media died, our retail space would still be fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would grow at the rate that it's grown over the past 6 years or whatever we've had social.
Due to social, yeah.
So I know the listeners don't know, but we talked about this earlier. It gives me a lot of respect for the power of social media.
Mm-hmm.
We've done great things on there. We've had a couple of hiccups down on the way with distasteful belts that got on there that should have never got on there. And now there's still distasteful belts, but some belts are less provocative, I guess, than others. But I've learned what can and can't be done through the eyes of society and how it's changed. And now it's we've grown everything organically. I don't pay for ads. I don't pay for followers like some bigger people do. And my followers are awesome. I can go to Abilene to Dillard's, and my wife hates this. Somebody will come up like, "Are you Pioneer?" "Yes, sir, I am." And she'll roll her eyes and walk away, and I'll sit there and talk to them for a little while. But so they know me. I put my kids. They'll see my blonde, cute little wife and my 4 blonde little ducklings right behind her, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's got to be Pioneer." There's not many people like that out there. So it's been cool to grow like that too. I'm not, like we spoke about earlier, I'm not a huge fan of big crowds. I don't want to be a celebrity. I don't want to be in the eyes of somebody down the street as somebody more special than them, because I'm not. I'm just a guy that has gotten lucky over the years through a lot of hard work and a lot of trials and tribulations. But it's something that I tried to say on every one of these podcasts, that if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
I'm not any more special than the next person. I was given an opportunity, and I took that opportunity. And what I think, at least over the last 8 years, I've given it 100%. And that's probably the difference between myself and some others. If they had presented an opportunity to only give 80%, they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. But we've grown, and this business has been a blessing to not only my family, but to the other people's families here. When we started, we were paying everybody minimum wage, just trying to scrape by. Now everybody's obviously well above minimum wage. We offer insurance to everybody. We give bonuses twice a year. It's
wow.
We're working on a 401k plan. I actually just had a financial guy in here the other day.
Oh.
So it's cool to see how this has morphed into a more professional business as well, because we're all still just kind of family out here, not related, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, to have some of those pluses and structures in the business to benefit their families is huge. I think they appreciate it. And I think it's a plus for the community, and it's, I'm sure, a plus for our company and the people in it.
No kidding. So you talked about how Pioneer grew mainly that kind of took off when it hit social media. Was there any one point at which something just exploded, either due to like maybe Larry said something, or was it literally just slow organic growth and social being the key behind that to getting you guys on the map?
We definitely had there were, I mean, I think in general it was a very slow growth. That we'd have days where we'd have, 2 or 3 new followers, and then you'd have somebody like Stephanie Sanzo, which is 2 million followers. She's a girl in Australia that's got obviously a super large following. Well, when she first posted, you'd jump up 5,000 followers. We've made belts for several influencers, decorated powerlifters, and you can tell when those people post. Mm-hmm. Like you'll get, say, who's one of our most well-known? Lauren Simpson is another one. She was an IFBB pro. She's a powerlifter, several million followers, beautiful girl, also out of Australia. Mm-hmm. She would post about it. There's 4,000 or 5,000 more followers. Or we would do a collaboration with, a supplement company, and, do a giveaway or something. And, you've got to like this company and this company. And some of those things, yes, there are ways to grow that social, but very much it was not like an overnight success. I mean, it was super cool when we got to 5,000 followers, and then it was super cool when we got to 10, and then, it was 25, 50, and we got to 100, and I thought, that was a major milestone, 100,000 followers. There's a lot of people on there that, kind of dream of that. And I never dreamt of it. I didn't really care. You kind of get addicted to it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the downfalls and the pitfalls that come along with social media and being on social media so much it's daunting, it's scary, it's depressing sometimes. And now, my goal, like I said, on that board is 175,000 followers, which I think will be cool. Yeah. But I'm not going to base my success on how many followers I have. Sure. I'm going to base my success on how many people I can help. Yeah. That's the goal of this whole thing. If it's monetarily, we give back. So far, just this year, we've committed upwards of $100,000 into several different meets, or, like we're doing donations for a lot of that money not necessarily goes straight back into the lifters. A lot of it does. Like out of that 100, probably 60% of it's there, but I've got, we're donating some gym equipment to the high school.
Oh, cool.
Where we donated, our little community just built a new baseball facility, and we donated, money to that. So being able to have the influx of money coming into our community, it doesn't seem right for us to not, distribute that a little bit to help the longevity of our community. Yeah. I grew up here. I didn't like it, but now that I'm back, I want it to be better, so everybody else does like it. Yeah. So that's the goal there.
Gotcha. We were talking about this earlier, but we didn't talk about it on the podcast. Why Coleman specifically?
So I don't know exactly, but I do have unless it was a happy accident, I have a good idea. Mom and Dad are pretty meticulous, so I bet it wasn't a happy accident. It's centrally located. A lot of the metro areas are all within a one-day shipping window. It's also a small town. They grew up in a small town. El Paso, where we were, violence was growing. They were putting metal detectors in the middle schools. And Mom and Dad they said, no, we're gonna go back into small town America, and that's how I want my children to grow up. Yeah. So it was here or Brownwood, I think, were the last two, which Brownwood is just a much larger town than this one. Not a big town. It's like 30,000 people just east of here, about 20 miles. So I don't know exactly what made them choose between there and here. I would assume maybe economic development helped them with the building or something. I was only 9 when we moved here, so I don't really know the ins and outs, and we don't really talk about the history much. We're kind of focused on the future.
Sure. What was the impetus for going into the custom space? And that for most people that would seem pretty daunting, because it's all like, if you're the amount of custom belts I saw out there is enormous. But how did you even start creating a process around that, and what made you even want to go into the custom area?
Customer request. I talk about this on almost every podcast I've ever been on. So there's a lady in in Canada that asked, "Hey, I want my belt to have my name on it." At that time, I had no idea how to get her name on the thing. So I Googled, and we started figuring out what we can do with the suede, and embroidery kind of was the front runner. And I reached out, does anybody have an embroidery machine on Facebook? And a girl that I went to high school with said, yeah, I've got one. We do, I don't know what it was, something for the school, maybe hats or something like that. And she said, I've got one in my house. I can embroider for you. So we cut a piece of suede the size of the belt that was going to go on. I took it up there to her, and she wanted Muscle Chick on this belt in purple. So I asked Chelsea, this girl that helped me out right at the beginning, can you embroider Muscle Chick? She said, yeah, no problem. Which at this time, this was all brand new. I had no idea. I'd never even seen an embroidery machine. No. And she embroidered it. I thought it was cool because it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And we put it on a belt and sent it up there. And, looking back on it, that belt was hideous. It was terrible. But it was very, very we were very, very green in the custom space. And, the belt itself was functional and durable. And, it would still hold the lifetime guarantee even to this day. But it wasn't pretty. It was just, it had her name on it, what she wanted. And I wasn't super excited about sending that out, but I knew at that point we can do this for lots of different people. And then that's when I think Oak Strong may have been the last, the next one, and it was some camo belt, and it was red block lettering, and it was ugly as sin too, and but it turned out that he loved it, and he at that time I think had 10 or 20,000 followers or something like that, and we went from no followers to a couple hundred followers, and that's just kind of just got the ball rolling. And for a long time, probably 8 or 9 months, we would cut our suede and roll it up with a little rubber band, and we'd take it over to Chelsea and with a little sticky note, and heck, I need this that says Pioneer in it, and on black script font. And she would embroider it and send it back, and that's just kind of how it went. And then it's morphed into a lot more crazy stuff now with exotic leathers and printed vinyls and inlays and sparkle stuff, and not only different the PAL lever, the Pioneer cut, the hybrid belts, the strongman belts. We've branched off of our base quite a bit, and it was all due to what people want. Yeah. But people have reached out and like, hey, can you do this for me? Sure, we'll try it. Why not? I may not be able to, but we'll sure try. Yeah. So I tell my people all the time, and I tell my kids all the time, that saying no or saying you can't, not saying no is not a bad thing. Saying you can't do something and putting that self-limitation on yourself is silly, and it's a terrible mindset to get into, especially at a young age. My kid this morning couldn't get the jelly off of the squeezable jelly for peanut butter and jelly. And he ran over to me and he said, Dad, I can't get this off. And I said, well, son, did you try? And he sat there and he did it, and right in front of me. I'm like, you can't put those. I said, don't put those self-limiting thoughts in your brain. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are already going to do that for you. Don't do it to yourself. And I don't know if he understands. He's only 7, but If I can get to him at 7, he won't have those at 17. He won't have those at 70. Yeah. Impossible is nothing. Now that we're in our 30s, right? We understand that what was impossible is not impossible anymore. Mm-hmm. And just saying you can't do something is, I don't think, good in business. Especially if you're scrounging for business, trying to figure out and trying to scale and trying to grow. Saying you can't do something is tough. It's the same thing like, with the product that you've brought to me. With you being able to source some of those materials, I'm not going to say that I can't do it. I just, we're different now than we were. It's possible. And, hopefully it'll come into fruition, and, you and I will be able to be business partners in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you have probably half a bazillion designs in your head when I say this, but craziest belt design you've come across?
Yeah, I get asked that quite a bit, and
Yeah.
it's really, really hard for me to pinpoint. My wife gives me hell about this all the time, that I can't pick a favorite in anything. Because I can pick a favorite, it just has to be broken down into genres and what it is. So,
Totally understand.
if you go into raunchy, nasty stuff, I'm not going to go into it, but there's some that kind of stick out. Yeah. The most meaningful belt, there was a stillborn baby. Took a picture. Well, maybe I think the baby died within a couple of days, a couple hours maybe. They had one picture of this kid, and it was not a very good picture. We were able to put that picture on a belt for that person, and I think it obviously made their day, but I think it made a big impact on them. We hear stories of, like, this one's in my brain right now. It was a navy blue belt. It had Born Again on it, with a cross out on the tongue. And the story behind it, the belt itself was not that special, but the story behind some of these belts that come through is what makes those belts special. The belts themselves are not, but being able to make those people happy, being able to kind of have that product around their waist, and they can draw that strength from that product, it's something that they're proud of. That's what is powerful to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any plans for Pioneer in the future? Are you guys do a ton of business already, but far in the future, are you looking to scale multi-location or go absolutely crazy with mass production? Or
So my wife and I have talked about it, and I do think it would probably be the best way to reach the world to have separate locations.
Yeah.
We've thought about doing something over in Europe, maybe in Southeast Asia, but I don't want to travel. And I know that unless I could take my family over there for a year at a time, make sure this place is established here as home base, and we'd be able to travel for a year, get work visas, and our kids could go to school and all that stuff. Logistically, it seems difficult, and I don't think that that's something that's in the cards anytime in the near future. We have spoken about it, and I do think it's a good way, because shipping costs suck. International shipping costs specifically. And if you have a super expensive belt that gets lost in transit on its way to Japan, it's hard to swallow, because the customer's mad. We're mad, and there's nothing nobody can do about it. So we just remake the belt and eat the cost of it. But putting one in the UK would put us in direct competition with SBD, which is probably our biggest worldwide competitor of what we do. They do a really good job on very small or very limited number of products, like knee sleeves and belts, and one belt, right? I think that's pretty much all they run.
Okay.
And they do a good job with them. They came out with their new lever, and people seem to like it, and I think they're successful with that. If we had a plant over there and we could handle custom orders from Europe, I think we would do well. It's kind of self-limiting when the product is expensive to begin with. Then you have a $45 upcharge for shipping, and then each one of those countries, they have customs and duties, and taxes and fees, and that already expensive product turns extremely expensive by the time it actually gets in their hands. I don't know. I'm not smart enough probably to figure out how to do studies on whether or not we would be able to sell enough to be able to take a huge loan out and go to a different country to open. It's definitely something that we've toyed around with in our brains. We've never put anything to paper to try to actually figure out how to do it. I have major goals that I don't talk about to most people, but there's a big open field just west of here. It connects to this property, and I want to see a 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility right there. I want to see it for Coleman. I want to see it with 120 employees in there, and I want all of those 120 employees to be well paid, so that this community can grow. Like, I just want to put the whole community on my shoulders, on this company's shoulders, and just boost it into a place where everybody can be proud to be from, rather than wanting to graduate from high school and get away from them for the rest of their life. You
Right.
know, and I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for any kids who go, moving forward.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get there, but it's not going to keep me from trying.
Yeah.
There are certain projects out there that I know would help cash flow wise. I know that would keep at least a couple of people busy. Would be sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've R&D'd several times over the past few years. I know the customer base out there actually wants those.
Okay.
They respect the brand. They know that I won't put something out there that's not, better than everything else.
Yeah.
Or at least not, what I think would be better than everything else. So if I could come up with that, I think, that we'd be well on our way to expanding this building.
Yeah.
And or, building a different building and adding employees, which is a good way to help more people.
Okay. You could put Coleman on the map in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the Pioneer belt and the impetus for creating that half-inch hole spacing, but also what differentiates Pioneer belts generally from, say, other belts on the market? I mean, just just a few primary factors.
Yeah. So the Pioneer cut, the PAL, pretty much everything cool that we've done has come from not specifically my brain. Like maybe the designs or the ideas have come from people out in the consumer space. Steve Strom was kind of the brainchild behind the Pioneer cut. I was able to figure out how to make it work from a manufacturing standpoint, a scalable standpoint, but that idea was not born in my brain. We looked at belts, my dad, my grandfather, myself, we looked at belts day in and day out for 40 years, and there's a whole lot of other people that looked at belts for that long too. And we're not talking about weightlifting belts, we're talking about belts in general. Yeah. That nobody thought, well, why don't we just put holes between the holes? And it happened. We posted that thing online and it went crazy, and it was kind of the rest is history. So raw materials being made in the United States, there's only several people that make belts in the United States. Raw materials there's a big thing that differentiates at least the American manufacturers from international manufacturers. We have more money in our raw materials because they're better sourced, they're better materials essentially. As far as manufacturing process, I can't speak on anybody else's because I don't truly know exactly how they make those belts. I do know that the other American manufacturers, at least Titan in general, Titan support systems down in Corpus, they make a good belt. They put love in it. They're made in America. The materials are similar to ours. They're still, and I'm not trying to be big-headed, but they're still trying to learn the custom game as far as embroidery stuff goes. Yeah. But they make a good product. Inzer materials are different. They use a separate piece of leather that stiffens their belts up. So, if you want a super stiff belt, we can make you a super stiff belt. But, if you want like a 10-millimeter double suede super stiff belt, they're about the only ones you can go to that have that stiffening agent in them. Okay. So it's not. Some people don't like that. Some people do like that. So I mean, if you wanted to have a thinner, stiffer belt, I have no problem telling them, like, look, you guys need to go to Titan, or I'm sorry, you need to go to Inzer. Yeah. If you want a custom belt, maybe a thinner, more pliable, more comfortable belt, you're at the right place. This is where we shine. Gotcha. So. That's really it. As far as any other international manufacturer outside of SBD, their materials they're not the same. They use much softer leather, and obviously they have that lever that's different. But outside of them, any other international supplier of weightlifting belts that I know of use suboptimal materials. Sure.
Just in terms of the business and what you guys have been able to accomplish with Pioneer, are there any, I'll call them success stories or stories that you've seen coming out of people using the belts in the health and fitness space and like breaking records, or really cool things that you've seen that's come a result of like, hey, I bought this belt and this is what I was able to do with it?
I don't really look at it that way. So I think that the potential is there with our belt or with somebody else's belt, right? So our belt has been around the people that have set world records countless times. From Thor Bjornsson at World's Strongest Man, when he broke his elephant bar world record at the Arnold a couple of years ago. He had our straps and our belt on. Daniel Bell broken the Raw and Classic Raw all-time world record wearing, I think, our wraps and our belts. Countless girls have broken world records, but I think that those records could fall whether or not it was with our stuff. Now, I'd like to think that I was directly I helped them make that, but I don't think that's really the case. The people that the weekend warriors are the people that are just trying to generally get more fit, more healthy. Mm-hmm. I do think belts have their space in that journey. Mm-hmm. It's something that, whether you think it's physiologically or truly helpful, they're going to help you lift more weight.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not the goal. Mm-hmm. They're also going to help you be safe, and I think that's normally the goal. You don't want to. You can't continue to get better if you get hurt.
Yeah. And
injury is a major cause, even in my life. And I've been working out on and off my entire life, and most of those off periods have been because of injury.
Gotcha.
So I do think that belts are important, and I think that a good belt is obviously better than a bad one.
Sure. Speaking of your lifting and weightlifting, can you share a little bit about your regimen, or if it may not be consistent right now considering how busy you guys are, but...
So I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you I'm some sort of competitive weightlifter or powerlifter. I've tried to stay active as much as I can through. I've had back surgery. I had back surgery when I was 31.
Whoa.
Because of powerlifting, and it wasn't necessarily because of powerlifting. I'm not going to shine it in a bad light. It was because I never sought a coach. I was never taught proper form.
Okay.
So, going out there and just trying to wing it and, get strong without anybody's guidance and, being blind to the fact that there was actual guidance out there that was needed, I hurt myself, right? So prior to that, I got married when I was 25, and I was probably in the best shape of my life. I actually trained for what's called a Spartan race, and I don't know, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So I despised running. All the time, literally since junior high and high school athletics, they made me run the 1.5 miles and the 2 miles because I was slow. I mean, I was never going to be a sprinter. I wasn't going to be a hurdler. So if you wanted to play football, you wanted to play basketball, you had to be in track. Well, they just threw me in the worst races they could put me in. So I despised running. Well, I got out of high school. I played collegiate golf and professional golf, and you don't have to be big. You don't have to be strong to be a golfer. It definitely helps not only mentally, but to being active and not being, how do I put it? I don't want to say a fat slob because that's not necessarily the right way to put it. But you want to stay somewhat fit so that you can perform at a high level. Then I got out of that and I started running. And like I said, I didn't like it at first, and then I thought, well, I'm gonna hike the AT. That was my thing. Before I got married, I wanted to hike the AT.
Oh, just a thing.
Yeah, and so I just got on the treadmill one day and I started walking, and I just walked until I couldn't walk anymore.
Wow.
The way the golf business works, like I would work from either like 2:00 in the afternoon until dark, or I would work from like 6:00 in the morning until 2:00. So I had and I had kids at the time, so I had a lot of downtime. Yeah. Well, I spent all that time either running or walking, trying to get myself ready to hike this 2,000-mile trail. Well, my wife, then girlfriend, didn't think that was a very good idea for me right then. So we skipped that, but I was still kind of into that running part of it. So I didn't want to just train for nothing. So I found something that I thought I'd be proud of if I finished, and I did well in. So I searched around, and Spartan Race kind of checked all the boxes. Like, all I can go do is 14-mile super beast, or I think it was called a beast.
Yeah.
13 miles with a bunch of obstacles. So that was my goal. Like, I set it in like January of, whatever 8 years ago was. What is that? 13. And I raced in actually probably December of 13.
Wow.
And it took that long for me to even be able to finish that race. I mean, it was pretty grueling. Lots of ups and downs, lots of those obstacles, that kind of thing. And I finished it, and I finished like, I think I was 13th or something out of a couple of thousand people. I did well,
Wow.
way better than I thought I would do. And I was proud of it. And by the time I got done with it, I told myself I'm never running again. Because I'd run 14, 15 miles a day, 3 or 4 times a week, and it wasn't. And it's still, at that race, it was much more difficult than it ever was in training. So I started realizing you have to train way harder to be able to compete at the level you want to compete. You can't just train at the same level, because the time the race day or game day comes, it's gonna be different. Yeah. You're gonna exert more. You're gonna try to do more, and if you haven't trained for that, it's not gonna be there.
Yeah.
So that was actually, I learned a lot from that year of training. You spend a lot of time by yourself, right, when you're running.
Right.
But you had a lot of time to reflect and figure out, like, to get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is kind of cliche, but it's true. It's true even to this day. In business, if I'm out here working a double and I'm out here 15 hours or 16 hours a day, I know if I can run that Spartan race, I can stand here and skive for another hour. So it helped quite a bit. Now I have a gym at the house, and my goal for the foreseeable future, and has been for several, is I want to travel a mile a day, and I want to lift weights at least 3 times a week. Okay. And I haven't missed yet. I've been sick several times even through that, and usually I give myself any excuse. I'm done, and I'll be done for 6 months until I get fat, and then I just don't want to be fat anymore, and then I start it all over again. So I don't have any crazy story. My story is probably probably resonates with a lot of just normal fitness people. Like, you don't want to be fat. Yeah. You don't want to be unhealthy. All you got to do is stay consistent. That's the hardest part, though.
Yeah, it is.
So
yeah. I did an article, or not an article, a video recently on that topic, and people can create top 10 lists of the best gym equipment and things to put in their home gym all day long. If they don't have the mental fortitude to push through and be consistent, with or without training partners, with or without the extrinsic motivate, like, you're not. I would never want to do that on my own, to be perfectly frank, like the Spartan race. Like, so having that in your head, like, I have this goal and I'm gonna crush it for a full year, running 14 to 15 miles. Without it, you're gonna collapse.
I don't think that's an inherent skill. I think it's a skill. I think it's something that can be learned. Yeah. It's just not easy to do. No. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that just, honestly, working out with a partner, I think, helps quite a bit. So my wife was super into fitness too. Nice. Now, she wasn't into running, so I would run all of that by myself. But ways to break things up and make it a little bit more fun. So, like, when I was doing my longer runs, to train for that Spartan race, you still had to do other things. So, like, if I got tired of running, I'd stop and do 20 push-ups and 20 burpees and and air squats, and then I got tired of doing that, I'd just start running again. And I think it's so important for people to realize the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like, it doesn't get easier, you just get better at it. Yeah. And if you can, people don't like to do things that they suck at. So, like, maybe the mental fortitude, just be like, suck less. Don't suck so bad at this. And if you continue to do this, you won't suck as bad at it. Yep. And maybe that's the mental route to take, because people that are just starting out are not going to be good at anything that they do, unless they're just genetically stronger, and they'd be like, oh man, that guy actually is strong. Well, this is my first time working out. Those guys would probably be more motivated to continue.
Yeah.
But the ones that aren't strong and aren't fast and aren't athletically really gifted, but they still want to be fitness, they've got a longer road to travel.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be harder for them to stay consistent.
Yeah.
So they're not alone. I think that probably helps a little bit. People realize that just because you suck at something, there's a whole lot of other people that suck at it too. So misery loves company. And I think that's why like Peloton and some of those places, where you get to like work out with
the group.
People.
Yeah.
I think that's
cool.
Yeah. I think that's why it's a big selling point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Speaking of which, are you part of the Garage Gym competition Instagram thing going on?
We sponsored it. I think we're giving away a belt.
Okay.
But no, I'm not a part of it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I meant as a sponsor. Okay,
oh,
cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and that whole community having just exploded. I mean, through COVID, I think that's gonna remain. Like that's amazing.
So too.
It's
amazing.
I think so too.
Well, I mean, I think even the CrossFit aren't they having
at home stuff?
I thought so. I thought
maybe
they
so.
were, like doing videos instead of having like big meets to like regionals
cool.
and stuff. I think they're to be able to like get into regionals. I think it's all kind of done
like a pre-qualifier.
Yeah.
Interesting. I had no idea. Yeah, I mean, it's so much better. It brings people together that weren't ever together before. Mm-hmm. People feel that sense of community, even though they might be in a completely different state. Going back to your semi-athletic background with golf, mm-hmm. Can you talk about what you did and maybe even why you stopped or what even led you to get into golf in the first place? Was it coming out of college?
Yeah, so golf was my first love. It was something that I sucked at when I first started, which I started young. Mm-hmm. And you can still have fun when you're young and sucking at something because it doesn't really matter. There's no end game. It's one of the coolest things about having kids is seeing them how bad they are, but how much fun they're still having being terrible at it. Like we're in T-ball right now. It's the same way. Like they love it, but they're terrible. And
I remember those days.
So golf, I fell in love with it, and just over that love, I got good at it. I got better than most people will ever get at it. And
what was your handicap, out of curiosity?
My best handicap I carried for about 6 months is a +4, which is better than just like a 4, like most people think. Mm-hmm. Like I would have to give somebody like a scratch golfer, which would be like a par on every hole.
Yeah. I
would have to give them 4 strokes. Yeah. So I played for about 8 months when I was actually trying to qualify for the PGA stuff. I went about 8 months without playing around over par. It was a pretty cool little stretch. But I put a lot of work into that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of work in the years prior to even getting to that point. It's one of those games that a lot of people play. A lot of people just do it because it's fun and it's a reason to drink beer and have fun with their buddies and that kind of deal. I had fun like that too in college, mm-hmm. but it was much more serious for me. Like I didn't like to suck at it after I knew how much work I put into it. So it's super frustrating, and it's such an easy concept mm-hmm. that it can get super frustrating. It's kind of like bowling.
Yeah.
Right? Like you take this ball and you knock those pins down. It's not hard. Do it. But it's extremely hard to get really good at it. So I played. We went to state all 4 years in high school. I went to college, played golf, and got into being a golf professional. Which really, golf professional, you think you just play golf all the time, and you don't. You have to work at the country club, and you have to give lessons, and you have to run the bag staff and make sure outside services are handled. But anyways. While I was there, like I told you, this was all while I was doing the fitness thing because, running, 15 miles may only take, 3 hours. Yeah. And then, working out might take another hour. So I still had this 3 other hours of downtime that I didn't want to just spend watching TV at the apartment. Mm-hmm. So I'd go practice. And I practiced, I had my full-time job working 40-plus hours a week, so I only had Tuesdays off. So I'd spend all Tuesday after working out, I'd spend all Tuesday practicing, mm-hmm. and I would spend every other hour that I had practicing. Wow. So you'd spend all of this 4 hours a day, spend 20 hours a week working out. Mm-hmm. You spend 20 hours a week practicing golf, and then you spend 40 hours a week working. And that's at that time working out, I think mentally helped me quite a bit. Practicing that much obviously helped. So I was ready. So I went and played in a pre-qualifier for a Monday tournament for the Byron Nelson and shot like 64 and got in easily. And then the Monday before, which is like if you were to get top 2 out of everybody that pre-qualified to this qualifier, if you got top 2, you got to play in the Byron Nelson that same week. And I had a triple bogey on like the 3rd hole, and I couldn't get back out on myself. I was trying to go for 2 on a par 5 and put 2 in the water and then made a triple. And I got it back down to I think I shot 69 or 70. And Patrick Reed, which I don't know if you're into golf, you'll know who Patrick Reed is, but he was there. That was right before he got his PGA card. He shot like 62 or something. Geez. And then there was an old timer. Somebody I should know. He was good back in the day that had gotten old and lost his PGA card, was on the senior tour, and he still had to he didn't have to go to the pre-qualifier, he had to just go do the qualifier. And he played good. I think it was like Azinger or something. Paul Azinger? One of those kind of like well-known names back in the day.
Yeah.
They both got in, and I put so much pressure on that tournament. Like this was it. Like if I didn't make it here, I wasn't gonna do it anymore. And I probably shouldn't have done that. There was a lot of pressure for what should have been a fun experience. Then I got out of that, and we moved here, and then family and work, and your golf kind of suffers. Every kid you have, your golf gets worse and worse. And I've got 4 of them now, so I can still go out there and shoot under par pretty consistently, but
that's incredible.
It's just something that my body's probably been so used to out of the millions and millions of balls that I've hit.
Yeah, that's you're doing better than most. I'd say most amateurs in that sport, right? I mean,
yeah, I think like the national like average handicap is like 18, which is like a bogey on every hole.
Jeez.
So yeah, there's a very small percentage of people that are playing like on mini tours that are actually still good.
Yeah, and
then obviously an even smaller percentage of people that you see on TV.
Right.
I would be like, if you say that's 2% of all golfers, I would probably be in that 3rd%.
Okay.
Not good enough to play on the mini tours unless I actually tried again.
Right.
And definitely not good enough to play on the TV.
That's amazing.
I'd love to, but I don't think I'm there yet.
Hey, maybe when this business is on autopilot, you'll just go out and be another.
I'm going to try out for the senior tour in a
there you go.
30 years.
Nice. You'd be that guy you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything that's coming up for Pioneer that folks should know about? Any new developments or products you're working on? Or
products? No, not really. But we do have our annual meet, which is this. I guess it's the 4th one. It's the 2nd one here in Coleman.
Cool.
The Pioneer Open. It'll be on September 11th. It was an open meet. It sold out in like 22 hours. So we have a bunch of people there. We actually this year we're going to tag along. Strongman Corporation is going to have their America's Strongest Man event at the same time. So it'll be a cool little mini sports fest here in Coleman in September.
Nice.
I'm excited about that. We've got we're a title sponsor at USPA Nationals, so we're going to go down to San Antonio. If anybody is, either local or flying into San Antonio for Nationals, I guess it's June 3rd through the 6th. Okay. We'll be down there, and that's probably it as far as products go. I don't have anything right now that we're really working hard on, other than just trying to stay up with orders.
Gotcha. Man, there's more of these competitions popping up all over the place. Like people like yourself, or I was just looking at Brian Shaw doing his own thing at his mountain gym up in, I think he's in Colorado, and he's doing like his own Shaw Classic, basically like his competition.
Well, so I did it for 2 reasons. I mean, we did the tribute, it would have been 3 and 4 years ago, which we just donated. I mean, I think the 2nd year we put $65,000 into it. Wow. On top of paying for the venue and getting all the federation sanctioned and all that stuff. And I wanted to bring all of the best lifters to be able to compete for real money. You've got a sport here that isn't recognized monetarily like any other sport, right? Yeah. So these guys are doing everything that other air quotes athletes do, but they're not being paid for or compensated for it really in any manner.
No.
So I wanted to change that. That was my goal. I did that for 2 years, and the U.S. Open has kind of taken that spotlight, and they do a pretty good job with it. And then I wanted to not only pay lifters, but I didn't want to do just elite level lifters. I always thought it'd be cool to like play a practice round or just go out and compete with like Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
So we did the Pioneer Open, which was just anybody could get in. But we donated, like last year, we did $20,000. COVID last year, I didn't have as much money. We did $20,000 for that. But what that did is it brought in some big name guys. Daniel Bell was here.
Nice. And
then we had some guys that was their very first meet.
Cool.
So I don't know how well that is logistically for the actual people that run the meet. Probably a little bit more difficult. There's a lot more weight on Daniel's bar than there is on somebody that's just starting. But
Sure.
I thought it would be. I mean, it was cool to be in the background and seeing somebody that's bright-eyed and not really knowing what was going on, and then you see like a veteran like Daniel over there squatting a grand. So it was really cool to watch the stark differences and how the newbies viewed Daniel. Like it was cool to actually witness. But it allowed for anybody and everybody to come to Coleman. Monetary prizes were good, and then it also brought a bunch of people to Coleman, which helped the community out. So that was the two reasons. It helped the community and helped the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm just going to ask where people can find you. I know you're all over social and all over the web, but primarily where do you want people to find you?
Yeah, so, if you want to look at, kind of dive into what we do as far as custom belts go and products, the best real place to communicate and see all of that stuff would be Instagram. Okay. Not even all of my Instagram posts make it to Facebook. So Instagram at Pioneer_fit. I think TikTok is also at Pioneer_fit. Okay. Those are they're mostly videos. Some are funny. I think you guys will enjoy the TikTok if you ever wanted to go over there and watch that.
Check that out.
And Facebook is General Leathercraft. Our website is actually www.generalleathercraft.com. So we're pretty much mainly focused on Instagram just because it's the easiest one for me to use because I've used it so much over the past few years. So
absolutely.
Before I even asked you about that, I should have asked you because this has always puzzled me. General Leathercraft and Pioneer, two separate companies. Why the difference?
No, so Pioneer is the brand name. It would be kind of like General Motors and Chevrolet on a much smaller scale, right? Okay. So you've got General Leathercraft that is like the umbrella company for, like, we used to have separate brands. Like we used to have Therapy Zone, we used to have Pioneer, we used to have Pioneer Sports and Outdoors, Pioneer Fitness, Pioneer. Like, so General Leathercraft was like the parent company, and these were just brands branched off underneath.
Okay.
So most people know us by our brand Pioneer. Mm-hmm. The actual parent company, the name of the company is General Leathercraft.
Okay. Very cool. That clears that up. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. It's been awesome. And I'll show you guys later, but I did a little bit of a factory tour, took some videos of different parts of the process. So that was really neat. But you guys should check them out, again, if you're ever in Coleman, and also on social. So thanks again, Matt.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. Good to see you. Thank you for listening. Please give FreedomCast a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean a lot to our business. Plus, it's fun to read y'all's reviews. See you next time.